Kaylin Riffle.
Hi, my name is Kaylin Riffle, and I live in Narrowsburg, New York. I'm just a few miles off the Delaware River. I come here today to say I appreciate you working on this. I have to say you cannot make any plan on paper without going out and buying a pair of boots and hitting the ground where this industry has already come in and taken over. Just 2 hours away in Susquehanna County, Pennsylvania, Bradford County, Pennsylvania, I've been to hundreds of homeowners, farmers who have lost their lives. They have no water they can drink from their wells. They have no help from Governor Corbett, Secretary Crancer, the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection is doing nothing to help these people. It's 2 hours from here. In all my experience in travels, meeting people who have allowed this practice to come in, who were conned by the gas industry, all I have seen is that the industry, they cheat, they lie, they spread mistruths, and all they do is cover up their wrongdoings. They've spent millions of dollars in advertising, national campaigns to fool the public that has no idea what's really going on. You won't be able to get down the road for the truck traffic. You can wind down your window and taste the frack chemicals in your mouth when you drive around in the air. You don't have to be even near a well site to have this happen. Stand near a compressor station on a farm where people are supposed to be milking their cows and listen to the thumping nonstop. As when you leave, you will hear it for hours. Drive where you see trucks that say fresh water only on the side of them. This is completely unacceptable. When I travel through these areas, I don't feel like I live in America anymore. We cannot allow this practice to move forward. We cannot allow this to happen in New York. We must stop this everywhere. A geologist friend of mine, Paul Rubin, stated to me in a conversation recently, unless we can learn how to build a well that will last for millions of years or the lifetime of an aquifer, we cannot continue having this conversation. I want to end this by saying, we, the people, will not sit by while the gas companies exploit our air, our land, soil, persons, and our future. Our future belongs to our children. We owe it to them as citizens, and we will do whatever it takes to demand our leaders to ban fracking now. Let me end by quoting a very wise forefather of our country. When the well runs dry, we will know the worth of water. Benjamin Franklin. Let us all heed his warning and listen clearly.
Thank you, Ms. Riffle. Craig Michael.
Good afternoon. My name is Craig Michaels. I appreciate you allowing us the opportunity to speak before you today. I'm an attorney and a consultant based in New York City, and I've lived in New York most of my life. I'm working with a number of organizations on technical comments, which you will receive now in January. Thank you. So I'm going to stick just to a few kind of big picture comments today before you. Nothing makes me prouder in life than every summer when I go camping in the wilderness of the Adirondacks, and I look up and I see the Department of Environmental Conservation trail marker. One, it reminds me that I'm not completely lost in the wilderness, but two, it reminds me that I live in a state, that I'm from a state and I live in a state where generations before me had the foresight, had the wisdom to put lands off the table forever. To put places in the New York State Constitution and protect them as forever wild. And let me tell you, I don't think there's anyone in this room, and there shouldn't be anyone in this state that would argue with this next sentence. The best decision that New York State ever made was establishing forever wild lands in the Catskills and Adirondack parks. These parks provide us with clean air, with clean water, with recreational opportunities, which in turn drive local economies. And let's not be kidding ourselves. These parks weren't established during good economic times. I mean, it wasn't like everything was honky-dory and we decided, oh, well, let's turn our sites to conservation now. No, they were established after we had clear-cut everything that was there. After the trout fisheries had been decimated by streams that were choked with turbidity, we decided never again are we going to let this happen. And instead of thinking of what can we do now to get some more jobs and some more money, we thought, what do we want this land to look like in 100 years? And we have to be asking those same questions right now because we are on the precipice of the same kind of turning point here in history. We are at hard times. It is so easy to be suckered in by the promise of a quick fix, but we instead have to be asking ourselves, what do we want the Catskills to look like in 100 years? What do we want the Delaware River Basin to look like in 100 years? What do we want the Adirondacks to look like in 100 years? What do we want the Finger Lakes to look like in 100 years? What do we want all those wild and, and scenic and recreational rivers within the state to look like in 100 years? We have to err on the side of caution. We have to heed the precautionary principle and say that in the face of uncertainty, in the face of risk, you err on the side of protecting the environment and the public health. And I'm just going to close by telling something that you already know. We're going to be here. We're going to be in the streets. We're going to be in the hearings. We're going to be on the airwaves. We're going to be in the courts. We're going to be in your face. We're not going away. And we're just getting started. Thank you.
I have 2 more speakers to call, but we're going to call the next 10 people who will be on deck after that to sit in the front. Go ahead.
Speakers number 21 to 30, you can come down and sit in front. Starting with speaker 21, Alex Greenleaf, Amy Roholt, Marion Stein, I believe it's Doug Wood. Doug Wood, okay. Susan Chen, Mark Ruffalo, Joe Levine, Lisa Fensick, Maria Brinkman, and speaker 30, David Brown.
Okay, so we're going to call now Robert Jureski.
Hi, my name is Robert Jureski. I'm with the New York Climate Action Group, and I'm also a Democratic County Committeeman in New York City. I won't reiterate what's well known in this state, across the country, and surely to the DEC by now, all the testimony about the economic, health, environmental impacts of this practice. I will suggest that the DEC I'll submit the Green Choices program website at Cornell for economic data that is very useful and revelatory. I wanted to echo what Mr. Fox, the filmmaker, I think, and many other people around the country recognize, which is that this process of regulatory review is seriously flawed. We should not be discussing under what conditions this practice happens. We should be deciding whether or not it would happen. And the testimony that you've heard so far that's been submitted in numerous hearings should make that answer clear to you. So I'm going to instead turn to and speak about another flaw in the process, which seriously affects the effectiveness of our movements for a ban in New York State. And that is the use by Governor Cuomo of his hydrofracking advisory panel, which is an opportunity for the governor and for the industry to hit again and again in the press with the idea that fracking can be safe. And we look in vain for representatives there of our environmental movement to ban fracking, which is the most popular movement there is in the state. We look in vain because we see instead organizations, representatives of organizations that have been boosting natural gas for years as it has decimated the western states, the plains states, and the southwest and southeast. So I think that this panel is another undemocratic and flawed element of this process that we're undergoing here. And it's a misuse of taxpayer money to have, and a propaganda tool, to have groups like the EDF, the Environmental Defense Fund, the Natural Resources Defense Council, and Riverkeeper that have been promoting fracking in some areas and saying we need to protect these pristine wild places in other areas. This is going to undermine our movement as we move ahead unless we challenge them and put them on notice that we know what we want. We know what we want. And no ads in the New Yorker by Mr. Kennedy, right, in February 2009. A revolution in natural gas production has left America awash with natural gas and has made it possible to eliminate most of our dependence on deadly destructive coal practically overnight, which is a quote of his article in the Financial Times. We need to put these people on notice because they claim many people, 1.4 million NRDC says they have. I don't believe it. That's what they claim.
Thank you.
Against our testimony,
Your
they
time
might
is up, Mr.
overwhelm
President.
us. So we want to ban on fracking.
Marcellus Marco Capel.
Thank you for this opportunity. First, I'd like to hold up my driver's license. My name is Marcellus. I am not kidding you. For 41 years, I've been wondering why I was given this name. And today, I know. My name is Marcellus, and Marcellus is asking you, don't frack with Marcellus. I am here as a concerned U.S. citizen. I'm also a renewable energy finance professional. Yes, finance. They're here too. New York, the world needs your leadership. The world needs your leadership on this issue. Do not allow this largely unregulated practice of chemical hydrofracking in your beautiful state. Why risk catastrophic consequences for the environment? Why risk it?
For money!
How will you explain this to your children 10 years from now? Something will happen. We've seen it in the Gulf. We've seen it everywhere. Something eventually will happen, and it's going to be big. Why delay the transition to a renewable future? A renewable energy economy, renewable energy economy that we desperately need. Solar, wind, and hydro are all in this state. Solar, wind, and hydro can power this entire community, this economy, and we will prove that. New York, show some courage. That's what New Yorkers are all about. Show some courage. Lead, don't follow. Don't take your orders from the oil and gas lobbyists. You can do better than that. The time to transition to solar, wind, and hydro is now. It's your time to lead, New York. This is your time to lead. Thank you.
Next speaker is Alex Green.
My name is Alex Greenleaf of Brooklyn, New York, and these are my comments for today. There's a God of oil and gold, and he's very, very bold. He's got so many stuffed suits in his grip. They're in his grip. Their fracking is a slaughter. It's destroying our clean water and causing earthquakes. Watch out, you don't slip. Don't you slip. Whose water? Your water. Our water, sweet, sweet water. Whose water? Your water. My water, sweet, sweet water. How they lie and lie and lie. No need to ask them why. And you know those lying liars love to lie. Their hands are greased with greed, and they're very slick indeed. And if you trust them, they will surely suck you dry. Whose water? Your water. My water, sweet, sweet water. Whose water? Your water. My water, sweet, sweet water. While they make their clean gas speech, all their chemicals might die, you might die. Will you stand up for what's right, or pretend it's out of sight? Don't close your ears, don't turn a blinded eye. Whose water? Your water, my water, sweet, sweet water. Whose water? Your water, my water, sweet, sweet water. And it starts with you and me. You know God's water should be free. And now it's time to rise up and take a stand before it is too late and big oil seals our fate. Let's fight and save our water while we can. Tell me whose water? Your water, my water, sweet, sweet water. Whose water? Your water, my water, sweet, sweet water. Thank you.
Rojo.
I just wanted to propose to everybody, what is so special about New York City that we cannot drill here? This is the question I've heard from gas engineers. When we could drill in all other states, Arkansas, Colorado, Ohio, Wyoming, West Virginia, and our sister Pennsylvania. I'm very happy today because I sit here with the prospect that we could really ban this thing here. But my brother and sister live in Pennsylvania, and I know my nieces and nephews will grow up having to dunk their head under the water and not be able to take in any of that water in their mouth by accident, like I did when I was little. I jumped in the lakes and I didn't worry in Pennsylvania, and now we can't do that now, let alone when my nieces and nephews grow up, and I'll be afraid for them to swim in the lakes there. It's a compound issue. It's a compound pollution issue with many sources besides fracking. So if we want to protect our state here in New York environmentally and economically, forget regulating, ban fracking. We will do the hard job. We'll set an example to the country and then to the world. Our biggest export in New York is food. We are one of the top 5 agricultural producing states. We're the 3rd largest grape producing state and the largest wine producing state besides California. But right now, Seneca Lake Wine Trail, a group of 34 wineries situated at the slopes of the largest Finger Lakes, is falling prey to the gas companies. The entire area, the mineral rights beneath their land is being completely bought out from under them. So 25% of our state's land is used for farms. We produce cabbage, dairy, cattle, livestock, apples, cherries, romaine, lettuce, potatoes, and beer. And New York plans to increase its locally grown food in upcoming years to increase its sustainability initiatives so that we import less from California and from around the world. So this is going to greatly impact our future land use and availability and value, and it's going to conflict with gas giants, which are buying up these mineral rights. Also, tourism. Do you think that we're going to protect or increase our tourism industry when gas well pads pepper spray the landscape? When it smells like Newark, upstate? I mean, people aren't going to want to go there. They're going to go someplace else where they're not allowed to frack, perhaps. Yes, this is a big state, as I've heard a few senators say. They think there's room for the gas companies and for us because it's a large state. Well, 3,400 well pads in Arkansas. The state was not big enough to stop the earthquakes and the pollution. The state is not big enough for the both of us, the people or the gas companies.
Thank you.
Choose the people.
Marion Stein.
Good afternoon. My name is Marion Stein. I'm a concerned New Yorker. I live in Brooklyn. The point that I am making concerns the clear threat to property values from the process of hydrofracturing to obtain gas and shale rock wherever it may occur. It's stated so eloquently in Elizabeth Rado's article. She was speaking earlier and she spoke about her in her article in the current issue of the New York State Bar Association Journal. She says the following, and I quote, "Residential fracking carries heavy industrial risks, and the ripple effects could be tremendous. Homeowners can be confronted with uninsurable property damage for activities that they cannot control. And now, a growing number of banks won't give new mortgage loans on homes with gas leases because they don't meet secondary mortgage market guidelines. New construction starts, the bellwether of economic recovery, won't budge where residential fracking occurs, since construction loans depend on risk-free property and a purchaser. This shift of drilling risks from the gas companies to the housing sector, homeowners and taxpayers creates a perfect storm begging for immediate attention. The home represents a family's most valuable asset, financially and otherwise. We cannot allow this to happen, to shift the responsibility and the liability from the companies to the individual homeowners. And I am afraid to say that I do not think that the homeowners who allowed leases to be purchased from them were aware of these factors and many others. This has been done without the full disclosure on the part of the gas companies. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug Wood.
Thank you for this opportunity to be here today. My name is Doug Wood. I'm the Associate Director of Grassroots Environmental Education, a nonprofit organization, and I'm also the founder of 1pm-11. Thank you. We have a great environmental conservation law here in New York that has actually established your department. And the charge to your department is, and I'm going to quote from what we all read before, to conserve, improve, and protect New York's natural resources environment, to prevent, abate, and control water, land, and air pollution, in order to enhance the health, safety, and well-being of the people. Now, you've just put out your SGICE, and remarkably, despite the charge given to you in the law, there's no mention of the health effects associated with hydrofracking, even though that's one of your primary responsibilities. This is your job. And so, you know, George Woodwell, who, Sandra Steingraber, I think is here, she may still be here, in her film, she's talking to George Woodwell, who founded the Woods Hole Research Center, and he said something that has always stuck with me. He said, if someone came along and said, I could make a lot of money, but I'd have to kill a few people, we would be so outraged at that. But really, that's what we're looking at here. We're looking at people getting sick from the air, water, and so on. The fact that you don't even choose to address this in the SGICE just says to me, if this was my daughter's home, you know, school report, I'd say, go back and do this again. Go back. I'm sorry, you didn't get it right. You have to do it again. And I'm going to, the rest of my time, I would like to speak to the folks out here. I guess from the reaction, I guess many of you have been to 1millionfrackingletters.com. It's an open secret in Albany. This decision is not going to be made by the DEC. This decision is going to be made by Andrew Cuomo based on political considerations. If he understands, if Governor Cuomo understands that fracking will stand between him and the White House, that's how we will win this fight. Thank you.
Susan Chen.
My name is Susan Chu, and I am a resident of Staten Island. Brooklyn and beautiful Delaware County, upstate New York, and I represent New Yorkers for Clean Water Inc. downstate. The deforestation of hundreds of thousands of acres of land for fracking will affect the water and wildlife in upper New York State, with fracking done on a 24/7 basis under daylight imitating artificial lighting, and as the noise from drilling has been likened to the noise of a jet engine, animals will be displaced and poisoned, competing for survival in a much smaller habitat. Fish will be affected as streams are filled with unusual runoff and chemically laden fracking waste fluid. This, in and of itself, will impact the upstate economy, as it is largely dependent upon hunting, fishing, and the use of surface water for recreation. People will not want to leave New York City for upstate New York when the land has been deforested and the water and the pristine air is polluted from fracking. While the economy, through spending by labor, will increase temporarily, housing costs will rise as out-of-state labor's housing needs are subsidized, and this will be to the detriment of New York State residents who will suffer from the unaffordable increase in housing costs. Much of labor's salaries will be sent to other states from which much of fracking labor comes. And as the estimate of gas in the Marcellus Shale has been exaggerated by the energy industry, the estimated number of jobs can be reduced. A boom and bust economy will be created, leaving devastation of the environment in its wake. In comparison, creating work other than energy extraction in New York State for residents will have a multiplier effect in money kept in the state. Air pollution will occur because of the industrialization of our rural agricultural land upstate, including the hundreds of thousands of truck trips using diesel fuel and the inherently dirty nature of methane gas extraction. Trees that help to recycle dirty air into cleaner air will no longer be available to perform this natural and necessary function. I just want to say to Governor Cuomo, I have been a lifelong Democrat. I am active in politics, in Democratic politics in Staten Island. You will be the first Democrat I will not vote for. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mark Ruffalo.
Hello, I'm Mark Ruffalo, and I'm here representing Sullivan County and waterdefense.org. You know, there seems to have been a lot of talk about science over emotion in this debate, but there seems to be a disconnect with the science and the DEC's new set of proposed regulations. One could say the DEC is avoiding science by refusing to listen to the 250 health practitioners and experts that are asking for a long-term comprehensive health study on hydrofracking, which is now missing from the regulations. The DEC refuses to finish a long-term cumulative impact study. There is the avoidance of long-term study on the social economic costs and benefits of gas drilling. In the coming weeks, I'm sure you'll receive tens of thousands of these kinds of concerns, and rightfully so. But I want to raise an altogether different kind of question here today. I want to ask, in the face of science, why are we wasting so much state money, time, and energy wallowing around in the radioactive muck pit of gas drilling when what this state needs and wants is renewable energy? Why is the state and the DEC so gung-ho on moving forward with this regressive, unimaginative plan to frack the daylights out of New York State? You say it can be done safely, but clearly it cannot and has not been done safely anywhere yet. If it could be done safely, we wouldn't be here today. You say it will bring jobs, but the New York solar jobs bill alone would bring more long-lasting in-state jobs than gas drilling without putting our workers and our communities at risk. Today, the only growth industry in the nation is renewable energy and lead standard efficiency. Last week, the International Energy Agency released science saying we have 5 years to stop climate change before it will be unstoppable. You say you believe in climate change. We've had this discussion. Yet your actions smack of denial by pushing gas production. Why is New York State promoting another fossil fuel and its extraction when climate change is so real? We are seeing the greatest droughts in the history, in the centuries throughout this nation and the world, and yet you are willing to destroy billions of gallons of fresh water for 5 years worth another filthy and climate-changing energy form. New York State needs leadership. We need leaders with imagination and courage that are going to face our energy problems with some bold and progressive ideas and not lickspittles of the oil and gas industry's lobbying efforts. This is what the people of this state want to hear from our DEC and our leaders. They want we want science. We want technology. This is what the people of this state want to hear from our DEC and our leaders, pitching to us, promoting to us, and twisting themselves and their intellects and their ethics into making happen, not fracking. We want to leap into the future, not plummet into the past. We want science and technology. We don't want to be fracked. We want renewable energy. We want renewable energy now, and we will fight for it. Tell them what we want.
Thank you.